Hey y'all, my name is Jerdy, and in this video we'll be going over Prot Paladins and Cataclysm. Now I know I posted an overview before Cataclysm came out, but I wanted to post a more updated guide after playing the class in spec for about 2 weeks, spamming heroics and doing the raid at least once on normal to give y'all the information I've learned from playing it, looking up other guides, and asking questions and learning in the Light Club Discord. So let's talk about our spec and our talent. First, just for running protection, you will get Vengeance. This is our main source of threat and damage. We'll get Touched by the Light, increase our stamina by 15%, our spell hit by 8%, and converting 60% of our strength to spell power. Judgment of the Wise, which gives us mana back every time we cast Judgment. I'll go over that in our rotation section. And Mastery Divine Bulwark, which I'll go over in our stat prio section. I'm not going to talk about everything in the protection tree, but I am going to talk about some of the more important things that we have in this tree, like Divine Guardian, which is a raid-wide cooldown that I feel like you have to remind your raid team you have, since not a lot of people run Protection Paladin. Just know that it does not work on yourself. It works for everybody else but yourself. You don't receive the benefit of this cooldown. Shield of the Templar reduces your cooldown of Avenging Wrath by 1 minute and Guardian of the Ancient Kings by 2 minutes, but it also makes Divine Plea generate 3 holy power, which I feel like a lot of people miss when they don't really read the tree. This is actually useful, I think, in our opener, which I'll talk about in our rotation section. Sacred Duty, your Judgment and Avenger's Shield have a 50% chance of making your next Shield of Righteousness be a critical strike. We'll talk about that also in the rotation portion. Ardent Defender, what's changed from this from Wrath is that this is no longer a passive cheat death. This is an on-use ability that still is a cheat death that's on a 3-minute cooldown. Grand Crusader gives Crusader Strike and Hammer of the Righteous a 20% chance to reset Avenger's Shield, and also will let it grant Holy Power. If you use it within a 6-second window, you'll see it light up on your bars when it procs. And then everything else in the Prot tree either gives you your Prot abilities like Hammer of the Righteous, Shield of Righteous, and Holy Shield, or just buffs up your mitigation or buffs up your niche Prot abilities. In the red tree, we take Crusade, which increases the damage of Crusader Strike and Hammer of the Righteous by 30%. Improved Judgment, which increases the range of your judgment by 20 yards, which makes this really helpful for picking up targets that are far away. Rule of Law, which increases the critical strike chance of Crusader Strike and Hammer of the Righteous by 10%, since we're only putting 2 out of 3 points into this. And then Pursuit of Justice, which has a 100% chance of gaining Holy Power when struck by a stun, fear, or immobilized effect, but like in its previous versions, just increases your movement speed. This time it's by 15%, both mounted and on ground. If you wanted to take out Rule of Law and swap it for Guarded by the Light, that would also be really good too, because we will use Word of Glory, and Guarded by the Light increases Word of Glory by 5% when you heal yourself, and that's really the only time I use it is on myself. For our glyphs, our prime glyphs, the one you're never going to swap out is Glyph of Shield of Righteous, just because there's nothing other really to substitute it with, and Seal of Truth. This is, I think, our best one just because it gives us 10 expertise while Seal of Truth is active. We'll go over why that's so important when talking about stat priority. Glyph of Crusader Strike, which increases the critical strike chance of Crusader Strike by 5%. This is really good, but there's also Glyph of Hammer of the Righteous, which is also something you can substitute for this as well. Your major glyphs, Glyph of the Ascetic, I don't know how to pronounce that word. Crusader reduces the mana cost of your Crusader Strike by 30%. Glyph of Lay on Hands, which makes Lay on Hands a 7-minute cooldown, not a 10-minute cooldown. This one I think is our best one to have. And this one, Glyph of Focus Shield. If you find yourself really not AoE tanking, which I don't think is the case, this is really strong because it makes Avenger's Shield a single target ability, but also buffing it by 30%. But I like using Glyph of Dazing Shield, which gives us back the original ability of Avenger's Shield when it would slow your targets when it hits them. Now, when talking about stat priority, we want to talk about CTC. And what is CTC? It's Combat Table Coverage. And this is a stat that we want to hit a certain percentage of, being 102.4% against boss level enemies. Because when you hit this stat, that means every attack you take is going to be mitigated, missed, parried, dodged, or in our case, blocked. And Mastery is the best stat for us to achieve that. Because remember, mastery in Cataclysm for Prot Paladins is Divine Bulwark, which increases our chance to block. We are a block-based tank class. Parry and dodge will help us reach CTC, but not nearly as much as mastery, since parry and dodge have pretty gnarly diminishing returns. Hey guys, real quick, I just wanted to stop the video to talk about this. I'm super self-conscious about it, but I want to make sure y'all understand when I talk about CTC and stuff like that, I read that from Wowhead's guide because I really trust the author who wrote it. And like with a lot of information I give y'all, I read it, ask questions about it, go to the Discord, and then I apply it when I play the game, and then I give the information out to y'all after I've tested it myself. I just want to make sure that y'all understand that I'm not the person who created that knowledge, because I feel like that's just not right to take ownership of something that's not mine. You'll always know what I talk about that I tested out, because I'll always say I did this. But if it's not my knowledge, I always want to give credit to the person I got it from. Now that I got that off my chest, let's go on with the rest of the video. The unfortunate truth is though, you will not reach CTC in pre-bis gear. You will be at best 10% away from that. And there's a cool macro in game you can make to check your CTC. I'll show you right now, right here. I have it right here. I'll post it down below, but right now mine with Blessing of Kings is 90.12%. Without Blessing of Kings on, it is at 89.92%, basically 90%. And I'm in pretty strong pre-bis gear right now, and I'm not at CTC. You will need heroic gear, which is, in my opinion, the biggest con about playing a Protection Paladin, is that we are the most gear reliant tank spec right now, which also means when I talk about our pre-bis later, is that getting your pre-bis is probably the most important for this class. When I'm playing my Frost Death Knight, I'm not really worried about getting every reputation maxed, because I know I'm still going to be useful without it. But for my Prot Paladin, I had to get every reputation maxed out to make sure I could get all my pre-bis gear. And I'll talk about that later on in the video. Now, if you go to Wowhead and check out their stat priority for Protection Paladin, they have two. They have survivability and they have damage. And I'm going to tell you right now, just ignore the damage one. Do not care about the damage one. You need to focus on survivability and you need to focus on mastery. If you want to focus on anything else besides mastery and dodge and parry, focus on expertise. But you cannot hit every cap in phase 1, even with bis gear. It is not possible. And when you look on Wowhead again for their bis list, they have multiple options. Again, I'm going to say go for the CTC one, go for the mitigation one. Guys, we have Vengeance. Vengeance is our main source of threat. I know having low hits and having low expertise is not going to be fun, because yes, we do miss and we do get dodged and parried a lot, but it is very important to hit CTC. It's very important to have high mitigation, because we are not as strong as Blood Death Knights with their self-healing, and I'll go over that later on this video. I have a whole rant for that, but you need to focus on mitigation and you need to focus on mastery. After mastery, I would say focus on expertise. I know that dodge and parry does help out a little bit, but a lot of your tank gear is going to have dodge or parry on it, so if you can find stuff that has expertise on it as well as mastery, put that on as well, because expertise I think is our next most important thing after mastery, since dodge and parry just happens to come with a lot of the gear. When it comes to our pre-raid bis, this is really important, and there are some non-negotiables, unfortunately, on what I think you want if you want to start getting into heroic raids now and you don't have any raid gear. You're also going to see a lot of reputation pieces, which I'm sorry, again, are just non-negotiables. So let's go over this first. The helmet, the engineering helmet, it's just really, really solid. You get specific engineering sockets like 208 mastery and 208 expertise, along with your meta gem socket. Again, I just don't think anything comes close to that. Your Mirror of Broken Images, this is from Baradin's Wardens, requires Exalted to get this. 321 mastery and a 400 magic resist for 10 seconds, only on a 1-minute cooldown. That's insane. I didn't have this my first week. I kind of trolled because I needed this to eat breath from Onyxia. It would have been really nice to have had this. We survived, but it would have been nice to have had this. The tier legs that you want, and this is not a troll, are the DPS tier legs because they have mastery on them. The tank ones do not. They have dodge parry, which is not as good as mastery. We've talked about that before. It is not as good as mastery. You want the DPS legs for that 228 mastery, and it also has 188 hit, which is nice to have, or if you want to reforge something else, go ahead, but it's nice to have that amount of hit since we're going to be pretty hit starved. Your cloak and your belt are non-negotiables in my opinion, because they have mastery. Luckily, they both come from Hyjal. The cloak is a tank cloak, but the belt is a DPS belt. I reforged the crit to hit. I'm probably going to consider expertise or maybe even dodge just to boost my CTC, but it has mastery on it, so you're getting two birds with one stone, but it is another another exalted rep to do. And then Wildhammer Clan, another exalted rep to get. These boots are just uncomparable in my opinion. Uncomparable, I don't know. But again, mastery and parry, it's just inarguable to have this. Stalagmite Dragon, nothing else until you get your Valor Point one, and I don't think you should waste your Valor Points on the relic. You should wait until after you get the chest, legs, and hands, assuming you haven't got anything from the raid, like me, unfortunately. And then there are other pieces you can mix and match. But like I just showed you, that's how many rep grinds? 1, 2, 3, and then you need your shoulder enchant, which is exalted with Therazane, and you need your head enchant, which is revered with Earthen Ring. 5 reps to get exalted or revered with. It's a lot. Now you'll be doing dungeon spams for the heroic pieces that you don't have, but it's just a lot on your plate. So if you have the time, great. I don't want to discourage y'all, but it's just, as I've tested out myself, you need gear because things hit hard and healers don't know what they're doing yet. And I'm going to go on that rant a little bit. I will link all the gear I have as I'm making this video below, but I will also post the Wowhead pre-bis list as well. For your enchants, you can see them on the screen right here. You can pause it if you need it. All of these are relatively cheap now, except for Windwalker. Right now it's like 25,000 gold, but you can go with Mending as a much cheaper, less effective option. It looks cool too, but these are your enchants and they're pretty cheap right now. They weren't cheap the first week, but they've gone down significantly in price. So let's talk about our rotations and our abilities. We have Holy Power now, which we charge and then we spend. So with our abilities, we can break them down in the 4 categories. We have our builders, our spenders, our fillers, and our cooldowns and util. So our builders of Holy Power, our Crusader Strike for single target, and Hammer of the Righteous for AoE. Our spenders are Shield of Righteous, Sword of Glory, and Inquisition. And we really rarely use Inquisition. I use it for my opener. You'll see me use it in a second. And then we have our fillers, which are Judgment, which I think is our most important one, Avenger's Shield, Consecration, Holy Wrath, and Hammer of Wrath. When it comes to our cooldowns, we have our offensive cooldown, which is Avenging Wrath or our Wings ability. And then we have our defensive cooldowns like Holy Shield, which is on a 30-second cooldown, Divine Protection, which is on a 1-minute cooldown, Art of Defender, which I went over, is our cheat death ability on a 3-minute cooldown, Divine Shield, which is our bubble immunity that is on a 5-minute cooldown, and then Guardian of the Ancient Kings, which is on a 3-minute cooldown. And then we have our on-use trinkets, whichever you have, and then we have our raid-wide cooldown, which is Divine Guardian, and then we have our utils like Hand of Protection and Hand of Freedom. Make sure you have mouse over macros for those abilities. And then we have our Lay on Hands, which is our Bleep moment to save us or someone else when we're in a pickle. We also have our seals, which I'll go over after the rotation. Right now I'm running Seal of Truth, but I'll talk more about that in a little bit. So seeing the rotation in action, I'm going to use Crusader Strike. I'm going to throw in Judgment, which gave me 2 procs of Sacred Duty and Judgment of the Wise. I missed there though, unfortunately, because we have low a hit. Got a proc on both again, luckily. And now when I use my Shield of the Righteous, we're gonna get a nice crit. Awesome. Then we just rinse and repeat using your other fillers. You want to keep that Judgment of the Wise up when you want to try and get as many Sacred Duty procs as you can before you get 3 Holy Power to get a crit. Now you notice my damage is pretty low because I'm not getting any stacks of Vengeance because this is a target dummy, so I'm not getting hit. Now if I'm opening though, what I like to do personally, I like to open with Divine Plea to get full Holy Power, pop Wings, Inquisition, throw in my Avenger's Shield, and then start doing my rotation, since I'll have a large amount of snap threat with all this. And then just start rinse and repeating the rotation. Remember, you have mechanics to deal with. You're going to have cooldowns to use. Know what the boss does, because you're going to need to use your cooldowns. In Cataclysm, your cooldowns are not just an bleep moment. It's a, hey, this mechanic is going to kill you if you don't use your cooldowns, so use a cooldown. We have a lot, so make sure you're planning them with your healers on what cooldowns you need to use. Now, when talking about our seals, we have 2 that we really use: Seal of Truth and Seal of Insight. Seal of Truth is like Vengeance and Wrath, where it puts up a dot that stacks up to 5, and the dot increases the damage of your swings while also increase the damage of your judgment casts. But I like to use Seal of Insight because of the healing it gives us, and it's really important right now to have as much self-healing that you can give, considering that's what makes Blood Death Knights so strong. We won't ever compete with Blood Death Knights on their self-healing, but we really need to give ourselves as much as possible. This is why I like using Seal of Insight, and I like using Word of Glory as much as possible when I'm main tanking and taking a lot of hits. And the reason why I'm saying that is because right now, and I'm gonna go on a rant, you're gonna see your health dip a lot as a Prot Paladin. And when you're under geared, yeah, that's normal. You don't have high mitigation. But I found myself even rocking 90% CTC, even in heroics, that there were healers struggling to keep me alive. And even in the raid I did, there were healers struggling to keep me alive. And my CTC wasn't that bad in the raid. And the reality is there's a giant learning curve in Cataclysm on people learning how to truly play their class, spec, and role. But it's especially apparent in healers. And I'm not trying to be mean to healers, but a lot of healers think they're doing really, really, really good because their tank is a Blood Death Knight. And they don't realize that a Blood Death Knight is doing half the healing that they are. So when they get paired with a Prot Paladin, they're like, oh my God, this guy sucks or whatever. But in the reality is they just don't know how to heal when the tank isn't doing half the healing for them. So you're going to find yourself in a position like I have right now, especially as we're just starting Cataclysm, where a lot of healers are not super confident when they don't have a Blood Death Knight in for them. Paladin tanks are not bad tanks. They're just not as broken or as easy as blood tanks. So just know that a lot of times it's not you. It's probably your healer. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to make excuses. It's just the harsh reality of Cataclysm. Everything's different. And yes, we are a little weaker than we were in Wrath, but it's not always your fault when you fall in a dungeon or in a raid. I want to give you that reassurance now. But to get to the original point of that rant, you want to go with Seal of Insight unless you really, really trust your healers. Then you can go to Seal of Truth, but I would just strongly recommend Seal of Insight for now. And the last thing I want to talk about now is just going over the fact that yes, a Prot Paladin can be your main tank and you will be fine. I understand if you are a hardcore, sweatier guild who was full clearing everything on heroic week 1, and that's what your goal was, and that's what you did, that you want to run a Blood Death Knight. I get that. That makes a lot of sense. Yes, they are just insanely broken and insanely strong. But if you are a guild that is slowly progressing heroic, still doing mostly normal, because it is only week 2 as I'm making this video, you can have a Prot Paladin as your main tank. Don't make them switch to Blood Death Knight if they don't want to. Too many guilds are going to copy what the hardcore week 1 clear guilds are doing. You don't need to do that. If you are slowly progressing heroic, your Prot Paladin can be your main tank. Your Prot Paladin is not the reason why you cannot kill that boss. I promise you that is not the reason why. I will always fight for Prot Paladins. I'm a Prot Paladin at heart. I will fight for my holy knights, Rent, Holy, and Prot. You cannot deny us from the raid. We are the holiest of classes. We are the most noble of classes. If you deny us from the raid, it's because you are stupid and also dumb. But that's it for me, y'all. Thank y'all so much for watching. Leave a comment down below, like if you found this guide helpful. If I'm an idiot and I said something completely wrong, be respectful and give me a comment down below as well. Remember, I am not the all-knowing guru on this. I do know a lot about this class, but I learned this from people who are smarter than me too. Follow me on twitch.tv/JerdyJD. And thanks for stopping by. Thanks for saying hi, and I'll see y'all next time.